Welcome to Business Notes. I'm your host, Diane Bogino. My guest today is Beverly Lewis. Beverly is the CEO, that's Chief Encouragement Officer of BeverlySpeaks.com. Beverly works as an executive trainer, speaker, author, and business culture catalyst. Beverly has spoken to hundreds of associations, private businesses, government groups, and various organizations from coast to coast with the goal to raise emotional intelligence and build a culture of trust and respect. Beverly, thank you so much for being on Business Notes today. I appreciate you being with us.
It's an absolute pleasure. I'm delighted and look forward to our conversation.
Yes, me too. You emphasize the purpose and vision are keys to effective leadership, but you often refer to as your why. But let's start there. Why do you do what you do?
Well, my why is all about leadership because I believe that everything rises and falls on leadership. The strength of families. I focus on business, so certainly the strength and longevity of a business, of a community, of a nation. But it all goes back to that I love teaching concepts and principles of leadership because it's not a title. Leadership is a choice. And I think one of the most important roles we ever have in leadership is as a parent. It's the family is the greenhouse for the nation, but our businesses are the greenhouse for our economy. And it's so it's a joy. And on a personal level, I come from a family of educators, and I found that I tried teaching. I started out majoring in college with an emphasis on elementary ed, and I realized real quickly that I am not called to teach children. I love my children, I love my grandchildren, but I love working with adults and seeing those aha moments and seeing them become the best they can be. So that's my why.
What attracted you to leadership in particular as a topic? Was there some event that happened?
Not so much. It was really, I think that having parents who led me well, and as I got in business, what happened with me is after out of college, I was not getting offered the jobs that I felt that I was qualified for. So I started my own business way back when I was really young. And I've owned many businesses now over the years. And I think in the process of business ownership, in one of those businesses in Tallahassee, I was building the business by speaking and training. And that's when I realized so acutely the need for leadership because I never had it in college. We didn't get leadership 101 in high school. We didn't get it in college. And I just had to figure it out the hard way. And I love, now I feel like if people have a track to run on, there's so much information out there now on leadership, but people need relationship and they need experience. And so it's just been a natural fit. I've also been told that find out what comes naturally to you and then figure out how you can teach and impart that. And I guess I am a natural born leader, but I don't take that for granted, and I've studied it. It's never, and it's so unendingly fascinating because people are so unique. And it kind of reminds me of the thing, as soon as you think you have everything figured out, along comes somebody that, just blows your thinking. So and I just think that people are the greatest natural resource we have. When we look at business resources, when we look at what's available to us, people are the most important and the absolute irreplaceable. In the current climate, we hear a lot about AI, all the talk about artificial intelligence replacing jobs, but computers can never completely replace people. We are designed and built for relationship, and that's where leadership comes in.
Right. You have a great story about how you got to leadership, so that's good. Let me ask you this question. Do you think it's more difficult to lead others or to lead self?
Well, I think that both are equally challenging. I think that though there is an order, that you cannot effectively lead others until you've learned to lead yourself well. Uh, that's so there, but the challenge for both of them is very real, and you never arrived. It is a lifelong journey.
That's
Um,
true.
yeah, as long as we're alive, as long as we're involved and engaged with people, there's going to be challenges. But again, it's also, to me, what carries the richest reward.
Mm. And look at the challenges you face along the way that you can't anticipate, like we're facing now. And you're certainly not taught to handle those things, as you mentioned earlier. So, yeah, it is lifelong. So, what is heart-based leadership, and why is that quality important in today's business environment?
Heart-based leadership is based on relationships. It's based on um, empathy and caring for other people. And I'll tell you a story behind why it's so important to me. I am a musician, and my father was a musician. He was actually also a leader, but his heart, I always joke about it. I say my first language is music. My second language is English. And my dad was a symphony director. So I grew up watching and listening to the incredible power of sound that a symphony can produce. And I won't go into all the magnificent experiences I've been privileged to enjoy musically, but this is the thing about leadership. The conductor is the one person on the stage that never makes a sound. He or she
Mm.
leads a whole beautiful symphony with motion. And I feel like as a leader, as a heart-based leader, it is being sure the people are in the right section. You know, you don't want to have somebody who's an experienced violinist and stick them over there on an oboe. You have to get people in the right chair, and then you have to get them in the right, order of leadership. And then you get to bring out the gifts and talents in those people so that they mesh and make a beautiful symphony together. That's the incredible challenge of a heart-based leader. And the reason I say heart-based is because in business, particularly, I think it's so easy for us to focus on productivity, and we certainly need to focus on that. We need to focus on the bottom line. We have to make money or else we're not going to stay in business. But in my example, think about if we have a leader that's got everybody playing their correct notes and it's mechanically, he's like, and I keep saying he, she, I say he because I always visualize my dad, but beating out the rhythm and everybody's playing the right notes, but there's no heart in it. It is not, those are not the people we pay to go see. Those are not the performances that are written up. Those are not the ones that influence people's lives. It's when you take the mechanics and put the passion into it and people can feel it. And that is the difference between running a mechanically productive organization or leading from the heart and finding people's passion, pulling out their best and bringing it all together in a way that people feel the difference. That's to me what heart-based leadership is.
Passionate leader is the one that people want to follow, and that includes employees. So, excellent point about business and economics, and about that running the country. We wouldn't have a country without business, but it has to be passion and felt and heart based. Good for you. Let me ask you, how do you suggest that people do increase their emotional quotient?
There's a number of ways. And again, it's a journey. It's a lifelong process. So the first thing is being aware of your own strengths and weaknesses, and personality tests and assessments. And I know that is your forte, Diane, and I think that's great. I teach about it, but I don't do personal assessments. Whichever one you choose, there's a lot of them out there, but knowing yourself. But most of us know what our strengths and weaknesses are. So the real value to me, I love seeing teams do those assessments together, because then being able to recognize strengths and weaknesses of those who you're partnering with, your workmates, the people that you live with, because the things that grate against us are often the things that we need the most. They're the things that we're lacking. And so that is a key way. Another thing is I've learned to have the difficult conversations, and we can talk more about that in a minute. I call them courageous conversations. When people don't get real, when they don't express their thoughts and they're not authentic with one another, then you become disengaged. And people, it happens in the workplace, it happens in personal relationships, that when that disengagement starts, then you tend to move further and further apart to the point of no return. And I think choosing to have courageous conversations, and I know a lot about this again because yes, I've studied, yes, I've gotten certified in, things from A to Z and gotten the education, but the best thing I have is experience, lots and lots of experience. See, I joke about it, that everything I know, I've learned the hard way, and doing things wrong. And I used to be a people pleaser, and I would tend to avoid difficult conversations, and I paid for it time and time and time again, to the point that now it's one of the things that I teach and advocate for, is having those courageous conversations. And the list goes on, learning to be eternally curious, to ask questions, and then to become a good listener. Again, that's something I personally have had to really work on, because I like to talk, but I've learned that listening is an art, and it is part of that whole emotional intelligence factor. So reading, surrounding yourself with people that are stimulating and that are going where you want to go, that builds you up and also challenge you to go a little further, to push a little harder, to go at it. And I don't mean work harder necessarily. I mean, think more deeply, grow, and get a mentor, get a coach, somebody who speaks into your life and calls you into the next level.
That's right. That's right. And we're both available, right?
Yes, absolutely. With joy.
And the things that you just mentioned, many people do not realize it, but they are all parts of business acumen. So once you dig deeper into that, you'll understand that. Getting back to your emotional quotient, you went to a meeting and you heard a story about the elephant and the rider. Could you just kind of tell us a little bit about that? Because I think it really drives that point home.
It does. It does. And it was interesting because that particular workshop, it was a reinvention lab, and it was dealing with the speed of change and helping process change, which is a very vital skill for leaders today, for all of us. And it was so interesting to me that in the very beginning, this was people from all over the world that are leaders of organizations and nonprofits and that kind of thing. And the first thing they addressed was fear. And I love that, because talk about getting authentic right up front with people is when you have to think, okay, what am I afraid of? What's holding me back from embracing change? So, and then we talked about the emotions under that. And the example was given of the elephant and the rider. And just the quick story is that, we would like to think that with our intellect and all that we learn, and we can think that we are in control, just like as if we got on the back of an elephant and we think, okay, I'm the human here, I'm the one that's got all the wits and brains and intelligence on this show. And yet when we ride an elephant, that is a several ton animal with brawn, and basically he's in charge. And unless we get going in the same direction, we're going to have a ride to remember. But the thing is, so the elephant is like our emotions, and that's where they call it emotional intelligence, because our emotions are behind every decision that we make. They're behind our belief systems. It's like the iceberg. Our intellect, again, it's what shows, it's what we want people to see. We like to think we're in charge. But unless we address the elephant and get in line with that, like I said, it's going to be tough. So that's the concept of the elephant and the rider.
Mm-hmm. And two of those things that you mentioned, change and emotion, that people do fear those. So let's talk a little bit more about your term courageous communication and how you define that.
Okay, again, I call it having the difficult conversations. And here's the thing about a difficult conversation. They're the ones that we put off. I always call it the elephant in the room. So here comes the elephant again. We have that saying in America of what's the elephant in the room, the thing that nobody wants to bring up. Well, the thing is, a difficult conversation should never take longer than 15 minutes. They typically last between 3 and 14 minutes, and this is according to research. So we can allow a problem to fester in a relationship and cause pain and dysfunction, and we'll deal with it for years. I could give you a ton of examples, but the reality is, if you'll just begin by having the difficult conversation, and there are steps to do that. You don't do it when you're hot. For example, you wait until emotions are cooled. You set aside a private time and a place to have that conversation. You have a goal, you have a time limit, and you have something that you agree on at the end for follow-up, so that it's not just a one-time conversation. That's a very, very brief summary of what that looks like. But that is just one way of having that's a real important factor of courageous conversations and how they play in to the longevity of relationships. I have to tell you something really quick. And I feel like I say this all the time, but your audience hasn't heard it from me. I'm a big fan of the Harvard Life Study, which is the most expensive and longest lasting psychological study that's ever been conducted. It followed the graduates of the Harvard Business School from the 1930s until their death, measured everything possible in their lives, their careers, how many times they changed jobs or companies. It measured their income, their education, their families. It measured their health. It measured things you don't even want to know that they measured. It was like, whoa, too much information. But the reality is, at the end of the study, they determined what the most important thing necessary for a successful life was the quality of their relationships. And you've always heard the saying on the people's deathbed, there's never been anybody to say, oh gosh, I wish I would have worked more. No, people are concerned about their relationships. And that's where this courageous communication comes in, because the key to relationships is communication. So we've got to have it. We've got to get better at it. We have to learn to articulate. I don't care what your personality is. I don't care if you're an introvert or an extrovert. We have to communicate, and we can always get better at it. I am chief example.
Well, I'm right behind you, lady, or maybe ahead of you. So on your website, I do want to mention you have a book on change and then a download on the difficult conversations. Am I getting that correct?
Yes, yes, I do. Yes, I do. And I just encourage people to visit. The one on the difficult conversations is if you just go to the website, it's the one that pops up and is the easiest to access. But I've got a brand new one that's associated with my podcast, which is called The High Road to Leadership, called The Packing List, which talks about the attributes that we all need for leadership and gives you a chance to assess and think, okay, here's the essentials. Where am I? What do I need to work on? And I just, that's part of the increasing emotional intelligence too, is choosing to intentionally work on at least one attribute, probably not more than that at a time. You know, I usually have several on my radar that I'm focusing on, but being intentional every year, I choose an intention. I've been stuck for years on the one, I want to become unoffendable. I say I've been stuck for years. Yeah, I didn't get that down the first year. I didn't get it the second year or the third year. I think I'm in year 5 of working on being unoffendable.
Well, I think we're certainly better at it than we used to be. I know I am. That's you just have to be.
Yes.
So let's talk about your new book, which is, and I want to know how you arrived at the title of it, Win from Within, the Heart of Success and Significance. Tell us about that.
That really goes back to what you asked me about, which is harder to lead yourself or to lead others. And it really goes back to that it starts with yourself. And honestly, I wrote the book based on core values as well as the biggest obstacles and challenges of leading yourself well. I certainly give examples in there that I've learned, again, the hard way from businesses. I hate to say it, but I think it's true of all of us. Some of the most poignant lessons, some of the deepest lessons I've learned aren't from the business experiences of success. It's from where I really screwed up.
Is that a technical term?
I think so. Yeah. It's like, you know, and so the book is full of stories. I love telling stories. I'm a storyteller by nature. My mother was a media specialist and a librarian, so she raised me with an intense love of books. But yeah, so that's where the title comes from. Is it starts in here, it starts with us, and then see if we had leaders, and this is a good point, if we had leaders of our nation right now that were leading themselves well, that were heart-based, that had integrity and honesty and authenticity as their primary core values, do you think our nation might be in a different place? But see, we have a lot of people who have their own agendas, and it's true on a national level, it's true all the way down the chain. And that's why I'm on a mission, you know, to help people be the kind of leaders that that will build a legacy that lasts and that we can all be proud of, because we're not promised tomorrow. You know, we have today, we can be our best today. And I want to build every day of my life with that thought in mind. You know, I think it was James Dean, not a business expert, that said, plan like you're going to live forever, but live like you're going to die today. And, you know, there's something to that. And I guess it's very personal for me right now. I just lost a very good friend unexpectedly about a month ago from COVID. I thought we were all through all this, you know, and she got very sick in 10 days, boom, she was gone. She had a successful business, she had a staff, she had a thriving community influence, and boom, all of a sudden she was gone. But that made me think a lot about, okay, what if what if we were taken out today? What is our legacy? And that's a big motivation for me about why why we want to be the best we can be, build emotional intelligence, invest in relationships, knowing that ultimately those are the things that count.
Mm, absolutely right. Beverly, and people can find your book on Amazon on a lighter note.
Yes. And Beverly Drew Lewis is there because there's an author, Beverly Lewis, that writes fiction, and that's not me. I
No,
have, so it's Win from Within, The Heart of Success and Significance by Beverly Drew Lewis.
you're a real world girl, right?
Yes.
Good for you. Thank you for giving us a lot to think about, a lot to work on. I appreciate your time so much today, and I encourage people to pick up a copy of your book right away. Thank you so much, Beverly.
My pleasure.
Thank you for watching Business Notes. We've been speaking with Beverly Lewis, CEO, that's Chief Encouragement Officer of BeverlySpeaks.com. I'm your host, Diane Bogino, bringing you business ideas you can bank on.